Yep, it's the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. My name is Greg White, and Jason Pridmore is at the racetrack on the line, waiting for, pardon the interruption, to start. Jason, do we have to rush through this thing right now?
Yeah,
or
we do, because
all right?
it's the one show I love. We got, I love
Why are
Pardon
you
the Interruption.
why are you at a racetrack right now, all busted up?
You know what? I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting in the cabins at Chuckwalla, resting, got my leg up. I'm hanging out today, actually, here. And then tomorrow and Thursday, got some students that are coming out. And then this weekend is CVMA, the second to last round for their championship. So I'll probably hang out a little bit for that. I'm pretty much just
Are you getting on a bike? Are you getting on a bike?
Well, I talked to Dr. Ting about this, and he agrees that I can definitely ride easier than I can walk. So I've got a couple guys that have signed up for one-on-ones with me long time ago, and I'll probably ride a little bit tomorrow, maybe a little bit Thursday, but I'm not really. Dr. Ting approved it, and the problem is right now, Greg, is it literally is easier for me to ride than to walk. I can't. I'm having some problems because I'm what am I? Tomorrow I'm 8 weeks out of surgery, and the thing is that one side of my fractures are really healing well. The other side just taking a little bit longer. But when you have this rod in your leg and you walk around on a rod, anybody that's had a broken tibia, probably had the same thing I am, it gives you such a false sense of security because you feel like, hey, I'm good, and then you just overdo it a little bit, and then it hurts. So you feel like you're setting yourself back, and that's what I don't want to do.
What's the plan for Road Atlanta then? Because I mean that's just right around the corner, and usually you're
we didn't go through
around.
that. We didn't go through that, did we?
What?
I'm just gonna get on your back the whole time and just have you walk me around. I figure you could use a little working out anyways, right? You're on the shred right now, so I thought I'd just jump on your back and just have you carry me around. No?
Yeah. Why don't we table that discussion? We'll put a pin in it, and you know what I mean. We'll circle back to it.
Get right back to that one.
But I'll write it. Yeah, I'll write it on the whiteboard, and so we'll. Yeah. Great.
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't miss it. I'm so excited about getting down to Road Atlanta and seeing how everything plays out. I think it's an exciting time for our championship right now, and with everything else going on in the world of motorcycling, it just seems to me, and I try to be a realist. I really feel like our sport right now is a little bit back on the rise. I'm glad to be part of the MotoAmerica thing, and with all the different ways that people are going to be able to watch us, I wouldn't miss it. So, in answering your question, in all honesty, I'll probably be on crutches because I can't walk long distance at all. I can walk around my house a little bit and I can do some of that, but I can't walk for long distances. So I'll probably be on crutches a little, or if anybody's got a scooter or two they can let me borrow, that would be perfect.
That would be perfect. Yeah, because Road Atlanta lends itself well to that because we're inside the track, inside the paddock, inside the track. Some places we're always outside, like, Utah. So that'll be all right. All right. But Jason, this weekend coming up is round 2 of the MotoGP championship. So why don't we get into Argentina? What do you think we can expect? I mean, Cal Crutchlow won it last year with Johan Zarco in second, Alex Rins in third, Miller, Vinales, Dovizioso. What do you think we can expect?
Well, I'm excited about it because what is it? The third year they've gone back there, I think it is. Is it third time, so. Greg? Third? I have to look into it, but I think it's the third anyhow. I remember last year, Jack Miller, it was putting in that incredible lap in qualifying. Some of the things I remember from it anyways was the incredible lap he put in during qualifying and then the chaos that ensued. I'll never forget getting a text message from you before the start of last year's race saying, Jason, you have to watch all the pre-race. And I said, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I saw the warm-up lap, and then, a couple guys after the sighting lap, or after the warm-up lap, the sighting lap didn't want any part of, they didn't want any part of the tire situation that they had chose. They were on reins. Then one or two guys kind of got rid of it, and they didn't want everybody starting from pit lane, so they penalized the whole grid by having him start like 5 rows behind or something, behind Miller. Yeah, it was just pretty crazy to watch all that, and then of course with Marquez and everything else that went on, it was a pretty crazy race.
It's a tough race for Michelin too. So they started racing there in 16, so this is the 4th trip back. But every year it's been raining. And even in 2015, when Michelin knew they were taking over the tire situation and going to this racetrack, they had rain in their tests. So what is it, 9? It's 9-3, I think, is something like that in terms of rights to lefts. And
Mm-hmm.
it's got a very abrasive surface, and it's pretty punishing. Yeah, I have the Michelin race card. It's 9 rights and 5 lefts, and it's a 25 lap race. So it can be pretty punishing as well. So it'll be interesting to see if Michelin's actually got it figured out too. Even from a dry standpoint, if it's dry the whole weekend, which is kind of like now, Jason. There's a video on MotoGP.com of Alex Rins talking about his, I guess, surge into the limelight, and Rins said that he feels like the motorcycle is there and that he's learning enough where he can compete for the title.
Well,
it's I didn't tell you about that, and we didn't have this conversation before, but
no, it's good that we don't, but I've been on Rins for a year now or two. I love him, and I think he's, since we've been doing this podcast, I take the time now and I try to learn more about things. I think being a racer for so long, you kind of have a tendency to not really want to pay attention to everything. And when I rode, we didn't have anywhere near the social media that there is now, where all these guys have to continuously read the hate that they probably get, or people always thinking that they have the answer over these guys. What I find funny is I do listen to some podcasts. I've started to listen to some, and when I listen to a couple things that people are talked about, even about the first round, Rins looked fast, did he not, at first round? I mean, what did he finish, Greg? 4/10 back, I think it was. You said this morning?
4/10. Yep.
And you hear guys talking about, number one, Dovey did such an incredible job maintaining what he thought was going to be a pace that he could control his tire wear and that kind of thing. He talks about the Ducati being slow mid-corner, but when you have a fast bike, you're not worried about mid-corner so much because you can go down the straightaways fast. And Dovey, he controlled that whole race. It was incredible. I felt, though, that if Rins led through turn 1, that there could be a potential that he could have maybe pulled enough of a gap to get away to where Dovey couldn't get back down and get past him back down that front straightaway. And when I hear what some people were saying about, Rins learned a big lesson at that race, that he can't go too soon, that he can't do that. Go too soon. He finished 4th, and he couldn't really go anywhere because he couldn't lead into turn 1, which I think would have been a strong point for him. They also talked about tire wear. Somebody like Rins probably wore out his tires a lot more than Dovey, because he's constantly trying to get on the gas mid-corner earlier, trying to get drives off of turns to stay with guys to pass them in the next braking zones and things like that. So I think Rins could be a real threat at Argentina, because I know they have one big long back straightaway there. But I think if he can get off the line and get up in the front early, I think he could be a threat this weekend. But why wouldn't he think he could win the championship? I think he's hired as their A rider right now, and he's got a lot of confidence. He's got a good factory behind him, and he just seems like he keeps getting better.
Yeah, I love the fact that for years everyone's talking about how Honda, Yamaha, Ducati are the bikes. Now Suzuki is creeping into that conversation, and it was highlighted in the video that MotoGP put together. And I think that's really, key in a way, because obviously Rins is a very talented racer, but you got to have the equipment underneath you. And he said, somebody asked him what the strength was of the motorcycle. And what do you think he said, Jason?
Turning,
of course.
Yep.
I mean, of course, that bike's great turning, and mid-corner speed is incredible.
Yep.
And they asked him, what do you think the weakness was? And he said, I'm going to keep that to myself. So I also
what does that mean? My bike's slow,
Exactly. But I like the way he did that interview too, because it just shows he's just all in on Suzuki, that he wants to kind of protect the team a little bit. And we all know what's going on. It's not a mystery. We can see it, especially if you watch the helicopter shot, because you can watch an entire race on MotoGP.com from the helicopter, and you can really see the accordion effect on how things are working. Gives you a really good perspective to see how incredible the Ducati came off the corner. So, I mean, last year Rins finished 2.5 seconds behind Zarco and Crutchlow, but that was also, a unique race as well. And you look at the results and you're like, wow, things were crazy. But, and I will say this, Bautista did finish 42.6 seconds behind in 16th spot. And that's going to kind of play into a conversation we're really going to have next week. Obviously.
Okay, yeah. No, you look at the results, and I've got the same. I pulled up the results and looked at them. And when you see now, like you look at things and you go like, well, Lorenzo last year, he finished 15th. You're coming off where he was at Doha with his injuries and things. You got to suspect that he's going to do better. And I'm really interested to see how the Hondas do at this place. I think Doha is a little bit different, like we've discussed, as opposed to any of the other races where these guys all tested for 2 days, 3 days prior. They had a couple days testing a week or so prior to the race. But the Hondas, when you look at the really good testing time that they put in, with Marquez being hurt, Crutchlow being hurt, man, it kind of tells me that bike is pretty good right now, it seems. And with Cal winning in Argentina last year on a bike that I don't think was as good as it is now, it'll be interesting to see how the Hondas play out at this circuit. And if Dovey does have to control races from the front, maybe Ducati needs to help him find a way to keep up some corner speed, some roll speed, if you will, because I feel like it's only a matter of time before he kind of gets attacked by 2, 3, 4 different guys, and it's going to make his job a lot harder to control from the front. Because this track they're going to now, it's not as quite as flowy as Doha. It's got a little bit more stops. It's got one big long back straightaway, and it looks like parts of it flow, parts of it are a little chopped together. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Hondas go because they haven't really got the big time quality testing that they would have liked, I don't think. Nakagami, of course, did a lot of testing during the offseason. But with Lorenzo, Marquez, and Crutchlow being all injured, I thought it was a pretty good showing for Honda right out of the box at Doha.
Mm-hmm. Let me make a correction too, Jay. They started racing back there in 2014. Was
it that long ago?
It was that long ago. Wow. And Marquez won the race then. Rossi won it back in 15. In 16, it was Marquez. And in 17, I'm pretty sure it was Marquez as well.
Yes, I think it was.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was Vinales. It was Vinales.
Did Dovey win a race there? Did you say he did or didn't?
Nope. No, Dovizioso. No.
That's right.
No,
it was Vinales.
It's been Marquez. Gosh. It's been Marquez.
Time flies. Yep.
I know. Rossi won and Vinales won. And then, of course, in 2000 and...
But the year Rossi won was when all the controversy was starting. That's when it all started because Rossi was catching Marquez a lot, passed him at the end of the back straightaway, and then Marquez, in my opinion, just ran to the back of Rossi, crashed, and that's kind of what started the whole thing that ended up in Sepang at the end of the year, between Rossi and Marquez there. So yeah, I think it'll
be an exciting weekend. It could come up with some crazy results. You know
it can.
Like obviously the Crutchlow thing. So depending on weather and tire choices and all that stuff, it's going to be an exciting weekend. And of course, you can get all of that stuff on MotoGP.com. Who else has it? beIN Sports has it, if anybody can find it. So I'm looking forward to it.
No, and you look at Zarco finishing second last year by 0.2 of a second, and you think, man, in 12 months, how much things have changed. The first KTM last year was 31 seconds back. That was Paul, 31 seconds back in 11th spot. And now you sit there and you kind of think to yourself, what's Zarco's mindset now? I mean, he's going to go to some of these tracks where he's had some success. And obviously he had success the first year out at Doha when he led the race for the first 7 laps before crashing in turn 2. But now he's going back there on this KTM, and I'm very interested to see how it plays in the psychology of his weekends now, with the hopes that they're going to continue to get that bike better. But it'll be a shakeup. I think Miller will be strong again this weekend. But MotoGP is so fun right now, and then of course with Moto2 and Moto3 as well. There's just so much to talk about. So our show will be busy next week for sure.
So Jay, next weekend race action is obviously MotoGP, but the following week is World Superbikes back in action at Aragon.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you know this or not, but I had a chance to chat with Jonathan Rea, who is the 4-time champion Kawasaki rider. Now we're going to run the bulk of that interview next week, but I wanted to give you just a little sample of what he and I had talked about, and I want to get your opinion on something. So you want a little World Superbike action with Jonathan Rea?
Absolutely. Yeah, it'd be great.
All right. So we talked about a variety of topics, and One of them is something that well, you know what? Just let this soundbite tell the story.
You can never have a debate about World Superbike versus MotoGP because it's completely different. It's I've been there and I got on a good bike at the time, turned up and 2 wild cards and I had a 7th and an 8th. Right now, if somebody did that, they'd talk about it for ages. You'd certainly get signed up, but it's all about opportunity. The sad thing for Superbike guys, or say, for example, MotoAmerica guys, or even British Superbike Championship guys, there's the level of rider in a lot of championships is super, super high, but they might not ever get the opportunity to show that full potential. The sad thing for Superbike guys going to MotoGP is they never turn up on factory equipment. I think, even when Ben went there all them years ago, he went on the Tech 3 bike. It wasn't in a fully factory team. Or Cal was the same, and it's really tough. It's now the MotoGP guys. You don't even have to be a top MotoGP guy, but they come to World Superbike and they step into one of the best rides. Certainly a manufacturer supported ride, and I feel really blessed and lucky because I found a great team that let me sort of realize my potential. But I go motocross with guys that are 10 times more talented than me, but they never get the opportunity. I know I race against guys with amazing talent, but even inside the Superbike class, but they don't have the machinery to be at the front week in, week out. And it's, I'm not naive enough to think that just because I've got the last few World Championships that there's not equally as good or even better riders in that grid that don't have that. So you can't just turn around and say, yeah, this guy's amazing. Certainly, if we talk about what Bautista's done is incredible, for a rookie to come in, but you can't just turn around and be like, he's so much better than everybody else on the grid because you don't know everybody else's story on the grid. So it's a tough topic.
So Jason, what question do you think I asked him?
Well, this is something that I have been saying in every podcast that we have started, and maybe it's because from a rider's perspective, look, when I talk about myself being a rider, I didn't accomplish the things that I've said it before. I didn't accomplish all that I wanted to accomplish, but I studied a lot of things and I understand things, and I do understand being a rider. It is the most absurd thing in the world that people will sit there and say that Bautista is head and shoulders above anybody else. Bautista is a tremendous rider, But if you look at it, Greg, when Nicky came through a couple of years ago, there's not a person in the paddock in World Superbike that would have chose Alvaro Bautista over Nicky Hayden. Not a person. Everybody would have chose Nicky. But look at the team he got on with the bike he got on. There was no chance he was going to win, even though he was as good as he was. And right now, if you put Bautista on the Honda, he wouldn't be up front. It just is not the case. Now, the things I liked about what Jonny said there are guys within the grid that he's riding on that he has so much respect for, that knows how good they are, but they might not ever get given the opportunity. When he had the opportunity to go ride the factory Honda, he finishes 7th and 8th, never gets looked at again. And you have to remember too, the rides that he had the potential to get back then were satellite teams, not factory. And the satellite teams now are so much better than the satellite teams were 4 years ago when he was getting the opportunity to go ride for them. And I've no doubt he saw what happened with Eugene. Eugene decided to take a chance. He went to MotoGP on satellite teams. There's no question in the world what you would do. Of course, he snatched up that factory Kawasaki ride. And I don't think he's been closed off with the idea of going to MotoGP, but it's got to be the right circumstances. Otherwise, you're just another guy with a lot of talent that maybe can't fulfill their potential because of a number of different reasons. Our sport is so finicky. And unless you have the right bike and the right team and the right crew chief, it's going to be very, very hard to be successful. I think it's a very honest answer, honestly. What did you gather speaking with him when he answered that question for you?
The conversation was really extensive, both when we were recording and we weren't recording, and everything that you just mentioned, he will mention in what we talked about next week. And he agrees. It really is about building the team around you as a rider and, getting to know your people and having them on the same page and about equipment. I mean, that little 2-minute clip that I pulled was part of probably a 5-minute answer. And he was searching for words because he's been in trouble in the European press by saying some things. And, it's what you're saying is completely true. And we all know it. Even coming up when I was a novice racer, I look at a couple of guys that I know that ended up like washing out. I say wash out, but I mean, had to get jobs or ended up getting married or having a kid. One of them, got involved in drugs, that were amazingly talented. And I have no qualms about saying that a couple of these guys that I know or knew would have been top level superbike racers in the United States, given the opportunity, given time, to practice. And Jonathan even pointed out Cameron Beaubier. I don't know if this was part of the recording or not. He said he is convinced without any doubt that having Cameron Beaubier come into the series and given time to develop into a rider, that he would be right up front, running right up front, and the possibility of winning races. But it has nothing to do with where he's sitting. Need time.
You need time to develop. And it goes back to, if imagine if Jonny got an offer to go ride for there's no Cali in MotoGP, but let's say he gets a chance to go ride the Honda, or if he could take some of his crew and he could have people that are familiar to him in the box with him, and he got to go through a full off season of testing, maybe get 6-8 days on the bike, however many days he would get, then there's no reason, if he's hungry, if anybody's hungry to do the job, and they want it bad enough, they're going to be successful, because all these guys, they can ride. And I think that a few things I've really, really learned to discuss now with people rather than argue, because you have to take into consideration that when people are making an opinion about something, it's usually because they're siding with somebody. They might, for all the reasons that people love to see Bautista win, are the same ones that complain about World Superbike being boring, okay? But they're more pleased that Bautista's winning because Jonny's not. That's what they're happy about. They're not happy the racing. They can't say that the racing's great. They can't say that because the racing's not, because there's a distinct advantage right now.
But so, Jason, on that vein, how soon till these people turn on Bautista?
If 100%.
Right, halfway through the season, if he's checking out winning by 8 or 9 seconds.
That's exactly right. And the last thing I'll add to it, because I know you got a lot with him for next week. Nice little tease you're doing for all of us right now. But the thing I'll tell you is, I don't know why people bitch about Jonny being honest and complaining about there's a distinct advantage. He's a racer. Like, we don't like getting beat. And if we feel like that there's something that is distinctly wrong, then or not fair, to show a gripe or be led into a question or an interview with, do you think it's fair? Do you think it's this or that? If he doesn't answer the question, he looks bad. If he answers it honestly, he looks bad. He's in a no-win situation. The thing you got to remember is they changed the rules because Jonny Rea was so dominant. That's what they did. They changed the rules. Dorna made it to where, let's see if we can do something to slow the Honda or the Ducati and the Kawasaki down. What can we do? So they changed the rules because he was winning races and it was bad for the sport. But you really just got a manufacturer that did it right with a great rider, which is not unlike what Ducati has done now. Exactly the same thing. They've done nothing wrong. But Bautista has come from MotoGP and jumped right on to I really say there's 3 top teams. You got Yamaha, Ducati, and you got Kawasaki. And he's jumped on the factory bike, on a bike that he's really, really familiar with. And he's doing what he should do on that bike against Jonny Rea. But that doesn't make him a better rider, in my opinion. And I think that that's kind of what Jonny was saying there. So I'm looking forward to what you have next week. I think it's gonna be an interesting discussion. So you mentioned earlier, Greg, that we are going to Road Atlanta next week. And on the MotoAmerica side of things, we go we're going to be taking off, and on April 5th and 7th, we'll be at Road Atlanta. If you're listening to this before March 31st, make sure you check out MotoAmerica.com to get the Live Plus streaming purchase for under $50 for the entire season. I'm doing it for my mom, G-Dub, because my mom...
Are you really? Yeah.
Oh, my God. Now so, I'm on it with her, so I got to get my stuff in before then, too. Maybe we know somebody will give me a break. I don't know.
I think we do.
Yeah. If it's after, you can still get it. It's just a bit more. So, I mean, I think there's no reason for us, and I know you've done some number crunches and things like this on what it's actually going to cost you to watch if you put in your money now, Greg, and I know you got some of that.
Yeah, I did. I mean,
of course, you're the numbers guy.
Right, yeah. So, all right, I don't know how many hours we're going to be on Live Plus during the MotoGP weekend because we only have Superbike class there. But on 9 of our normal race weekends, I'm not really sure about World Superbike, but they're a little bit more lax in terms of what we can do. But let's just say on average, because you're getting 6 to 8 hours a day. So let's say average we do, 7 hours plus a couple here, a couple there. So if you get 65 hours of live coverage on Live Plus and you're paying $49.95 per hour, that's 77 cents per hour. If you just watch racing, like if we look at the 4 classes we're going to have per day, you're going to have like Super Sport, Liqui Junior Cup, and then you're going to have the Superbike class. And then you'll have one or two of the race. You'll have like either Stock 1000 one day or Twins Cup. Then you're talking about, 30 minutes a race on average. So 4 hours of race coverage per day, Saturday and Sunday. You're looking at $1.25.
Wow.
$1.25 per race. It's a smoking deal. Plus, you get discounts here. And Jason, all the stuff is video on demand. So if you miss it, you can go back. I mean, to me, it's MotoAmerica's not paying us to do this. We're encouraging people because I think it's just a smoking deal. It's a smoking deal. It's something you should be telling all your friends to go do. It's $50. Think about what you spend $50 on in the course of 1 year. I think it's a good deal. It's going to be a lot of good stuff. Plus, there's going to be a bunch of extra content. I hear that you have to do Jason Pridmore, you've got to do what, like 11 or 12 interviews a day, every day, the entire time we're there, something like that.
Nobody wants to hear that. I can promise you.
And they got to be like 10 minutes each, or something like that.
I can promise you. I'm at the low end of the TV side of things because nobody wants to hear me interview people. But I did enjoy doing a few of the interviews I did last year, and I've reached out to a couple of the boys and asked them. There's a couple guys like Tony I didn't get to interview last year. I didn't interview Josh Herron. There's a couple guys I didn't get a chance to do last year that would be fun to do this year. I think, Greg, when you look at our entry lists, okay, if you look at our entry lists, they were just sent to us again today. We kind of got an update, and all our numbers are up a lot higher. But the people that know the guys that race, those are the ones that we have to rely on, that if they can't make it to the races, do this thing, because this is going to be an opportunity for you to follow the people that you get to watch. It's so much better than just watching a live timing board or live timing things. We got Dylan Gray that's going to be doing a lot of this stuff for us as far as the paywall goes. And I know you and I will show our heads in there occasionally, hopefully, and help with whatever we can. I just think that overall, it's a great thing for everybody to just kind of jump on board. And my mom found out about this, and she's like, "Hey, I want to get this. I want to keep up on things." I said, "All right, I'll get it for your mom." So yeah, it'll be great.
It's cool, Jay, because are you familiar with Bill Burr, the comedian?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I know who he is. Yes.
So I started listening to his podcast, and just the other day, I was on a long drive down to Georgia with some archery stuff, and he starts talking about MotoGP and Formula One and all. Yeah, so I'm like, I want to reach out to him and say, hey, man, check us out, and you can watch us anytime. And yeah, it's going to be cool. Plus, I think the other thing too is, for some races, select races, you can get half off tickets. So if you want to come out. And it's worldwide, dude. And that's the coolest thing. Opening up to the world and having that ability, I think, is cool.
Yeah, we want to be able to. So many of my friends from over in Europe are pumped about this because they're going to do it. I've got some friends over in the BSB paddocks and World Endurance paddocks. And what this is going to do is it's going to help put our series, back in the talks again. I mean, we got a lot of guys that would like to come over here and race again. They love America. They love being around it over here. And I mean, they've seen what Tony's done. He's made it. I mean, he's just made it a lifestyle over here for him now. And
a lifestyle. He's got a baby now. He's got
and
a
everything. Baby now, and he's surfing every day.
He's full on. I know.
He's great. I had a great text conversation with him. About a week ago before he went testing, and he's just loving it over here. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people in Spain that follow him. Now they've got a real way to be able to do that too. So yeah, make sure you jump on that. What do they got before March 31st? What's today, Greg?
And then after
26th?
Something like
26
that. So, and even after Jay, it goes up. I think I can't remember, $15 or something like that. It's still a deal at 65 or whatever it is. So
it's great.
All right, let's get to the first race we had of the weekend, which is American Flat Track. It was at Dixie Speedway for the Yamaha Atlanta Short Track. Now, Jay, I'm kind of guessing that they were the title sponsor because Yamaha's been moving their operation from California, and like 90% of the company's headed to Atlanta. But man, they got smoked at that track. Indian Motorcycles dominated the race, sweeping the podium with Brendan Robinson on top, ahead of Jared Mees, who's the reigning national champ, and Briar Bauman. Jared Vanderkoy was our first of our Harley Davidsons, finishing in fourth. But because I love to, Jason. I spoke with the champ, Jared Mees, about his weekend.
It was a little slow going. I was in the second practice group because of my Daytona. I didn't finish high enough in the points at Daytona to get into Group 1. So I was in Group 2, and the track there changed really fast. If you watered it, it was real fast the very first 3 laps out there, and then times dropped quick. I was in the second group, and we qualified, I think, overall around 7th or 8th. And then in the semi, I got second. Briar Brown was kind of getting away from me, but I got a second. And then we made a tire change for the main event. We went to the softer compound tire, which that's what everybody was running pretty much all day long. And the old famous saying, "You can't beat them, join them." So we joined them with a softer tire and grabbed the really good start. Led lap 1 all the way to lap 22, and because we went to that newer soft tire, I didn't really have many heat cycles in it at all, and it wasn't very wore down. And a track like Atlanta Dixie Speedway, you got to have like a really low profile, really, really wore out soft tire. And it started kind of going away from me for about 6 laps to go, and got past, and was able to bring it home to a second. Brandon Robinson got around me. He was riding awesome.
So the biggest gap while Mees was leading, Jason, was back on lap 5 of that race. It was 0.7 of a second. There were a couple laps where he was 0.6, but then, Brandon just kind of kept chipping away at him. And by the time he got to lap 18, 19, it was just a tenth. So, I mean, it was one of those races where it was good. It was an entertaining race, fun to watch and all that kind of stuff, but gives you a little bit of insight into how, Mees's weekend went there. You got to put all the pieces together in American flat track racing, don't you?
Oh my gosh. I drove home that night from San Jose, and when I got home, I was like, oh, I got to get on Fans Choice and try to watch this race. And of course it was done. So I saw the final results, but I went back and started looking at some of the qualifying, and I went into even looking the singles class. And in the first session, because I talked to Corey Alexander all the time, I thought, oh, I'm going to see how Corey did. He was 53rd. He was 0.9 off of pole. And in the next session, he was 46th, and he was 0.8 off of pole. And I thought, you have all those people, and they're all within a second of each other. No wonder why the fans love the racing, because it is so close. Like, I was a little critical of Daytona, and I've talked to enough guys down there that said, yeah, still missing a little bit of something. The track's not great. It'd be like a fun place to go if it was just you and your friends and you're just riding and having, but to race it. And I wasn't really that impressed. But this one looked a lot more interesting. I didn't get to watch it, unfortunately, but it looked a lot more interesting in that regard. And when you see a guy closing in on you with just, a tenth of a second a lap, especially what Jared says there for about 6 laps there, he just didn't feel like he maybe had the grip or the drive grip or whatever it was he was missing from that tire. It's hard to get away from guys when it's only a 20-second lap, 20-second lap.
Yeah, Indian swept the podium, like I mentioned. Harley, was 4th, but then you're really talking about Indian wasn't in 7th place position, 9th, and 14th. Yeah. The rest of them are all occupied by Indians. They're obviously dominant. But I think the thing to worry about at this point is, here we are, we're the second race in, and we have not seen JD Beach. The Yamahas finished 16th and 17th. There was one rider, I believe it was James Monaco, finished 15th. He exercised his
provisional.
Yeah, right. See, I don't even know what those things are. I wish we had provisionals when I was racing, but yeah, he exercised his provisional. That's why we had 17.
It wouldn't. But
one of the things,
it wouldn't have mattered.
Oh, it mattered.
It wouldn't have mattered.
No. Don't lean into the mic all sexy and try to persuade the audience that I was no good at racing. How dare you?
I'll have to persuade him.
But listen, one of the things Jared said that I thought was interesting is he said it just, when you race flat track, the key is you got to get a hold of the ground. You've got to get a hold of the ground. And I love that, the way that he phrased that, because if you spin and you can't get grip, just like was his problem with that soft rear tire not getting enough heat cycles into it, that's really the issue. And when I asked him about all the variety of tracks that they go to around the country, I said, so what tracks are the same in terms of dirt? And he said, none of them. And he started listing all these different tracks that they go to and the different types of dirt and all the different characteristics. And I was just amazed. But one of the things that's interesting to me is that Mees has been around this game, Jason, a long time, and he knows from memory, can rattle off. He can tell you this is, Georgia clay, and this is what it does over time. If it's dry, if it's wet, this is, dirt down in Daytona. This is what it's like at Lima. This is how it acts. This is what you need to do, how you need to set up the bike, because this is where it's going to be in the race. In all the racing that we do and all the racing that we watch in terms of motorcycles, is there a discipline of racing, flat track, especially twins racing, that it's more beneficial to be an aged veteran than dirt track? Does that make sense?
It makes 1,000% sense. When you talk to Supercross guys, what's really funny, and we've heard Chad talk about it a little bit this year, they know the dirt that's going to be rolled into the stadiums. Like, there's a pattern there, but dirt track has this ability, this kind of old school thing where it's like, I think you're 100% right. Dirt track is so crazy because you have to, I didn't realize how much goes into dirt track. I really didn't until probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and how much testing and things that these guys will do. But to answer your question, I can't think of a discipline more than dirt track that the knowledge that you gain from year to year, how important it is. And the fact that he even knows, oh yeah, if we go to here, if we go to there, if we go to, he knows all the dirt before he even walks in. That's pretty good advantage, I think, you have for anybody that's new that maybe is coming to the series.
Yeah. So Jay, for Mees, right? Obviously he DNF'd Daytona, and then he finishes second at this race. So, I'm sitting there going, all right, 2 rounds in the books. He's 20 points behind the leader. Is it time to panic?
It's too early to think about it. I mean, we're 20 points out of the lead right now. I guess if I would have went to Dixie Speedway and got like 10th, I'd be panicking a little bit. But we had good speed in Daytona. I mean, I was, came off the 3rd row and I worked my way up to 5th place before the bike broke, and just broke. Had bad luck. I mean, I think everybody usually has bad luck one race or another throughout the season. So hopefully ours is done and out of the way early. And we're going into some racetracks that are really good to me, and not really panicking yet. Heck, last year after Atlanta, I was disqualified, went to Texas, won that race, and started leading the points, and then clinched it with like 3 races to go. So that was last year, though, and this is this year. So you can never mock years, that's for sure.
They have a month off now, Jay, and then they start with some crazy run at it. And, you need to get streaky when you have the opportunities, for sure.
Well, yeah, they got a month off. They go to Texas, I think, and then they go to Arizona after that. So
yeah, it's like back to back to back for a bunch, and then a week off, and then more races. Yeah,
and to only a guy like that who's won championships, he's not worried about 20 points right now. He had really unfortunate Daytona, got a little bit lucky, but then he actually at the end got really kind of unlucky with the bike breaking there in the main, and then here, obviously he had the pace, he was leading and did all that, but 20 points isn't going to shake up Jared Mees at all, not even a little bit. He'll be head down for the next 2 or 3, and he'll be, he's obviously the guy to beat. So I don't think he's worried about that. All right, well, it was awesome having Jared on with us. Thanks for that. Round 12 this weekend of the Supercross Championship went up to Seattle. It was great to see that those guys had perfect weather, it looked like. The track, I really liked it this weekend. I think 3 out of the last 4, as a bystander and a guy who understands Supercross a little bit, but not great. I really liked the track. I thought the track was really cool. I thought it led for a lot of different variations of passing. It had a little bit of sand that the riders didn't complain about because it was in a straight, which sounded like everybody was cool with it. Before we go any further, the thing I'm most bummed about is to see our boy Chad. Chad Reed got hurt this week. Really gnarly crash. It was weird. There was 3 of them. Brayton was involved. As well as Chisholm. So all 3 of those guys got hurt. And, obviously Chad has been such a huge supporter of our podcast. To see him go out with 8 broken ribs and a broken scapula and a collapsed lung. I'm looking at his Instagrams. It sounded like he was having some fainting issues too, about just kind of getting up, Greg. And I know he wanted to be out of the hospital a day or 2 earlier. But obviously I know he wasn't going to be on the show this week. If he would have, it would have been Herculean effort and all that. But I know, for sure we'll get a chance to catch up with him too. thoughts are also out with Justin Brayton. I think he had a torn MCL. And I think Chisholm was relatively okay, although I did hear that he was in the pits afterwards, icing his knee. But it was just a gnarly accident. And when you see a rider motioning for medical crew the second that it kind of happens, I mean, Chad was landed on pretty heavily. You see him motioning for medical crew right away. I knew it wasn't good. But to see all three of those guys will hopefully make a return, a recovery. Now, Chad says everybody's saying Chad's out for the year, but did you see his Instagram post yesterday?
No.
He says,
I saw it, but wait.
He says he's going to try to make it for the last round. His goal is to try to be there for the last round in 5 weeks in Vegas, which I love. I think it's so cool. Everybody is like, I just got a whole nother respect for him the last 2 or 3 years anyways. And
dude, he loves his team too. He just wants to come back. And then here's the thing about Chad that I know for sure. If he does make it back for that last race, then it's going to fuel the speculation that's going on right now, which is he going to hang it up? Is he going to come back? Is he, you know what I mean? And it's like,
well, yeah.
I think it's part of it's out of his control. I would imagine that Ellie, his wife, might have something to say about it. I don't know. I don't know her that well and all that stuff. But, I hope that he recovers. All I care about is that he recovers healthy.
Well, when Ellie was there when it was Team 22, I mean, she was helping run the team by the sounds of things. So I don't think that the support system he's got at home is incredible. The fact that when I read his tweet or I read his Instagram and he says that he wants to be back in 5 weeks gave me the indication that he doesn't want to go out on the terms that he went out on in Seattle. I think it was a track that was almost kind of built for him. It was the highest I think he's qualified all year. He was 7th, Greg, after qualifying, had gnarly whoops. I mean, it just seemed like it was all kind of there for a good weekend for him. I love what they did with the track with the whoops. The whoops were gnarly. I heard they cut him down. Then some people said they didn't cut him down, but they made him different. But it definitely was the game changer in the race. They had a couple really cool double, quad, triple out rhythm sections that guys were taking different ways. But I felt like for Chad, that when I saw him qualified 7th, I'm like, oh, this might be a really good weekend for him. But the race still, Greg, was a bit shrouded in controversy. Obviously, Marvin Musquin wins the race. Ken Roczen ends up 2nd. Eli Tomac 3rd. Cooper Webb 4th. Doing this a little bit on memory right now, so if I'm messing it up, you can let me know.
Right.
But
Savatgy in 5th. Dean
Savatgy
Wilson
was
in
5th,
6th.
and Dean Wilson was 6th. Dean was, Dean Wilson was fastest qualifier of the night. It was good to see him get up in the mix as far as, he was fastest qualifier, finishes 6th in the main event. There's a couple guys that I kind of keep my eyes on this year. Justin Hill, who has been up in the first 2 or 3 in qualifying and is just nowhere in the races at all. And then I kind of root for Dean Wilson. I like him. I think he seems like a hardworking kid. Seems like a good guy. Got an opportunity when Jason Anderson went out. But
let's talk about the controversy.
Yeah, talk about watching the race. The first lap, they came into a rhythm section, and from where Chad and Brayton and Kyle Chisholm had all crashed the lap prior, there were very, very clearly stated there was yellow flags and the white cross flag, medical flag out. It's basically, in Supercross, means you have to roll everything. You have to roll everything. And this is the first lap of the race. And, Marvin admitted after the race, I mean, he was very, very up to the forefront of it and said, hey, I screwed up, made a mistake. And he basically doubled these little small doubles that, is a no-no. Can't do it. Just literally can't do it. And after the race, when the TV went off the air, it was funny because in the middle of the race, Ralph and Ricky got real quiet in the middle of the race. And I'm like, why are they not talking? And it was probably because they were watching video they probably got it in the headsets that hey, there could be some controversy here. And Ricky was pretty defiant in his criticism of Musquin and kind of not being aware of his situation and his surroundings and doing that and jumping and whatever penalty was going to be imposed, it should be imposed. But when TV went off the air, Greg, nobody knew what was going on. So for an hour after, everyone's still on Twitter trying to find out what was going on. Did you get to see the whole incident?
Yeah, I did see the whole incident.
What's your take?
Well, I don't really have a take on the incident. I mean, the rules are pretty clear. You got to roll it, and there's an incident on the ground, and I just I don't think Marvin knew. He didn't see it. The accident was behind him. So he comes around one entire lap later. And I get in Supercross, you can look around the track. When you're midair, you can kind of take a look. So even, the thing is, if he didn't know what incident happened and he's going in there totally cold and you see those flags, you got to get off the gas, and it's a safety issue and there are real lives at stake. And so my take is more with the penalty, I think, than it is with the actual incident, because Marvin made a mistake and luckily no one got hurt. And it's the past. It is the way it is. I just think I'm not a big fan of the penalty that was incurred, because I just don't think it really, I mean, come on, dude. They've, penalized people for not doing triples and, rejoining the race and stuff like that. And now you actually have real consequences if someone's laying on the ground, and he may have gotten everything in his mind, Marvin, set, and he knows where people are, but you never know. So I don't know.
Well, look, what you're saying is right. I think I have not seen this many red flagged Supercross races in a season than I have this year. I've seen more red flagged races and restarts this year than I have ever. Probably 3 or 4 I've seen. Okay. And I'm talking about heat races, heat races, last chance qualifiers, and mains. You have to understand that if there's waving yellow flags on a road racetrack, it's an indication immediately, like, okay, I can't pass. I can't do anything, right? If there's a medic flag, can't pass, can't do anything. And look, this is an isolated incident. This isn't a guy that I don't think Marvin Musquin did anything with any kind of malicious intent or to try to gain an advantage. That said, the problem I have with it is what will prevent a guy who's running 15th in the points, who has no care in the world about the points. Maybe it's the last lap of the race. The medic flags are out. He goes, well, I'm just going to jump. They're going to dock me 7 points. Who cares? Okay. The worst part is the worst thing is they do take away his purse. I don't know where that money goes, but it gets taken away from him and he loses 7 points, which in this case is going to be really big because he could have had the points lead up to Musquin. Up to Cooper Webb. But what I feel like is there's really 2 infractions. The first infraction is obviously you cannot jump during the medic flags while they're out there. You cannot do it. So that's what he got penalized for. Am I reading into this right? That's what he got penalized for, Greg. The problem I have is he gained, even if it's 2.5, 3.5, 4 seconds, he gained time on the track that no matter what, when I come around on the first lap of a race and I see +2, +3 on my board, it puts you in a completely different mindset as opposed to being +0, right? And
Yes.
And to be able to run a little bit free, because on about the 4th or 5th lap, so let's just say probably 5-6 minutes into the race, so it might, 5th, 6th, 7th lap, he made a couple big mistakes and Roczen was on the back of him. My problem is, had those mistakes, and you can never know because you never really can see how the race would have played out. But if he makes a mistake on the 2nd lap, let's say he makes a mistake on the very, very next lap, those guys aren't close enough to take an advantage of him making a mistake and getting in front of him, which then just completely changes the whole concept of the race. Was Marvin the fastest guy there that night? He was. Did he run a pretty faultless race? He did. Did he make a mistake? He did. But the punishment that he got for jumping seems to me that it's a little bit different than the punishment he got for actually gaining an advantage on the racetrack. And I haven't heard anybody really bring that up. I think everybody's in the thing that, like, should he get the race win taken away from him? A lot of guys are saying no, because he was fast, because he was this or that. But how racing works is when you gain an advantage over somebody, that's why they've introduced this whole thing in MotoGP now, where for whatever reason, if you get a penalty, there's a penalty loop somewhere there. We saw Fanati using it at Doha. You've seen guys have to do stop and go penalties over the years for jumping starts. I mean, you think about somebody jumping a start, the fraction that they gain jumping a start, unless it's just completely, there's guys that honestly don't even know they jumped the start, and then they have to do a full ride-through penalty, and it completely ruins their whole race, correct? Yeah,
correct.
So in this particular case, I feel they have to come up with a rule or a penalty that if this situation ever came up again, it's that I've never really seen it happen before. And had Marvin in the next right-hand corner that that was after the situation he just went through. If he had like almost pulled the brake lever on and let the field catch back up, it definitely wouldn't have been as egregious as it was by him gaining the advantage, as well as just disobeying something that is, in the best interest of all the riders with that cross flag, right?
Yeah. In my mind, I'm thinking black flag. Like, what a black flag would have been a solution. You know what I mean? Pulled him off the track. Because
just a
you're
5-second penalty, even if it's a 4 or 5 second penalty, something, right?
Yeah, and then Roczen wins. I mean, but again, the dynamic changes totally because you race it in a different way, and
correct,
all that stuff.
There's nothing that says Roczen would have run. There's nothing that said anything. But had Roczen been on the back of him when he makes a mistake, wherever he made the mistake, it could have been a corner, could have been rhythms, whatever it was, wherever he makes a mistake, it changes the dynamic of things only because now he might have got shoved back to second. You see how these guys race against each other when they get to those 180-degree turns. I mean, it's like kind of every man for himself. You leave the door open, somebody's going to go through. It could have changed everything because Tomac was right behind Roczen at certain stages of that. Could have put him back to third. Who knows? You just have no idea, but you'll never know because somebody gained a big advantage. And, it's great for Cooper Webb. I mean, he ended up basically, instead of getting his points lead halved to 7, it's 14. What is there, 4 or 5 rounds to go? 4 rounds to go now. So I know they got to go to Jersey. They got to go to Utah. And I know they got Vegas. I think there's one more in there somewhere. But yeah, I just think I would have loved to have seen somebody talk about the advantage gained,
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. They rolled on it, and so now we move on, right?
Yeah. And if you watched that night, I actually was really impressed with Ricky and his commentary on what he said. In the 250 last chance qualifier, a guy basically got typical Supercross pass. It was nothing, he got bunted off the track though, basically. The guy that hit him jumped a triple. This guy didn't jump the triple. And he pulled back in front of the guy that bumped him, held him off for the next lap and a half or 2 laps, whatever it was. And then they kicked him out because they felt like he gained an advantage missing the triple. And Ricky really thought it was a bad call. But if you're going to get a guy for gaining an advantage and letting the guy pull consistent right back in behind him, how do you not do that for a guy leading the 450 class?
Good
Weird
question.
to me. But yeah, it is one of those things. I am absolutely loving watching Supercross this year. And the championship's been really fun to watch. The other thing I'm really enjoying, although not so much in my house at the moment, but the other thing I'm really enjoying is our fantasy Supercross. And I'm starting from the bottom again. I'm paging on up, and I'm trying to see where my guy G-Dub is this week because I actually haven't looked.
Well, I keep climbing the board because more people keep adding to our, you know what I mean? So like now we have 54. So the fact that I'm hovering around 41st.
So you're kind of dissing on yourself now before I get to you. You're taking all the fun out of this?
I mean, I had 20 solid points. That's all I'm saying. 20 points.
You did.
Solid.
You had 20. You had 20 solid points. And,
you had 41.
I know.
You slipped down. You're slipping though, dude. You're down to 5th.
I know. Well, Q721 only got 20 this week. My boy Factory Fuller it's pissing me off that these guys are beating me now. Alex got 67 points. And I'll tell you right now, what was really funny is I think a lot of people kind of had Muscan to double up from the weekend prior. And there was a lot of people holding their breath, kind of wondering what was going to happen when that hour was going. And like, is he going to get credited with it? Is Roczen going to get credited with it? What is going to happen, right? So, and I'm looking at Alex's points right now. He got Muscan and he got Dean Wilson. Right. I mean, so right there's 52 points.
But skip those clowns. Okay. You got to look at Viking 43.
I don't want to
made
look.
A massive jump into third spot. Dude. Viking 43. She nailed first place, second place, third place, fourth place.
Dude. And you want to know something else? She had Dean Wilson to finish 6th. And you know why she changed it?
No.
Because I've done pretty well with the wild card this week or this year. That's kind of what's been saving me. I haven't really told you that, but I've got really lucky with my wild cards. Like when I've had like really bad weekends, all of a sudden I get an extra 26 points and that takes me over 40. So she changed from Dean Wilson to Savacci because I had Savacci finishing 6th.
Big mistake.
Big
mistake.
It's hell watching those races with her.
By the way, Beat G-Dub has moved up to 19th.
Yeah, he's killing it. Travis
is crushing it.
And I'm going to just go ahead and call out my boy Cole, because Cole was so full of it a couple of weeks ago when he was coming after us. Now, where's Cole at now? He's 18th.
Can we be done? Can we please be done with this fantasy talk right now? I'm just so depressed. I got to pull myself out of this hole. Can we be done?
Did you get one started for MotoAmerica yet?
No, working on it still though. Working on it. We'll let you know.
I was actually just trying to throw you under the bus right now just to get people on you about getting it done. But
can we move on, please, Jason Pridmore?
You're 55. You're ranked 55,219th in this pool.
Really?
Nice work,
and what's the
G-Dub.
next comment? Just like I was when I finished the 750 Supersport race?
I don't even think you finished that far back. Oh, it's brutal, G-Dub.
Well, why don't we move on to our quick shift segment presented by ARAI. You know, Jason, for 3 generations, ARAI has been making some of the world's best helmets. And of course, ARAI helmets meets all safety standards, but they also pride themselves on a blend of engineering tech and human craftsmanship that makes an ARAI helmet fit better and feel better, which also protects you better. Your head's worth the best. Visit ARAIAmericas.com for more information on tech, fit, and paint jobs. ARAIAmericas.com. It's riding season, people. Put the best lid on your noodle. You owe it to you. All right, Jay. So in this segment, we try to limit this to, say, 60 seconds or something like that, somewhere around there. We're just going to rattle off some topics with some opinions. And when we're done or getting close to it, we're going to do this. And then it's going to be time to move on, theoretically. All right, Jay. So Marc Marquez is back riding a motocross bike for training. A big deal since his shoulder surgery. I've heard both sides of the argument for and against moto training for road racing. What are your thoughts?
I'm the same. If you get around JD and Raj and Jake Lewis and all those guys and you start talking to them, everything they talk about is turn track. It's not so much moto anymore, is it? It seems like it's turn track, nothing really big jump wise. I'm a huge fan of being able to go ride a motocross bike. I'm a huge fan of being able to go ride motocross tracks. I know Josh Hayes does it. A lot of guys that Jake Gagne, all these guys have gone out, but we've all heard the horror stories about getting hurt. And Marquez now getting back on a bike. But what I am not a fan of is, did you see his post this week where he actually flatlands? And I'm like,
what are you doing?
Man, just be a little smarter. Maybe don't put that up on the internet for everybody to see. Right?
Team.
Am I just being old right now, or does that make sense?
No, it makes sense to me. I mean, just leave that one off. It's totally fine.
Like we get it. I mean, look, Marc Marquez he's amazing. And you just did a big gnarly jump. The last thing we need to do is see you flatland it. And there's a picture of him flatlanding where his feet are almost touching the ground. And there's a lot of guys that break their ankles and things without actually crashing on motocross bikes. And they do it by flat landing or landing on something there. So if you're going to do it, Mark, maybe don't post everything, but I do like riding motocross bikes for training. Greg, Aprilia's MotoGP technical director, Romano Albesiano, called out MotoGP technical director Danny Ulrich about his need for some help when understanding all aspects of technical stuff. Kind of a big call out there, specifically referring to questions posed by gpone.com asking about Ducati's swing arm wing. What do you think?
I think, obviously Danny Aldridge can't know everything. So I think it's, I don't know, a little bitter on Aprilia's part, but also I read that article and Romano Albesiano basically said, look, we've done the testing. We've had the wing that's on the Ducati in our test. And we know that it does A, B, C, and D, including like cooling the rear tire, which I still have not wrapped my head around how it can cool a rear tire. And I have reached out to Dunlop and haven't gotten an answer yet about that, like my contacts. But I think it's very telling that those that in the tech community in MotoGP aren't entirely happy with what Aldridge is doing at the moment. But I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be any backlash for that or what. What do you think?
Well, I think for me, the engineering side of it, I don't even want to pretend like I know anything about that. Obviously, the cooling of the tire seems a little weird to me. But look, the racing is incredible. I think that the problem might be that a couple of these manufacturers were maybe working on some things themselves, and then Ducati kind of got away with it. and I don't know this either, Greg, but were those shrouds on in practice and qualifying down there in Doha? I just don't know. That's what I don't know about.
I'm pretty sure that they were.
Well, yeah, and so it seems a little weird that it's after the race, but I don't really think that it made a big thing. But I would really love to hear the answer of how that is actually controlling the tire temperature.
I would love to too. Now, let's move on because hot off the press, MotoGP Court of Appeals hands down the decision. Okay, so it's going to be a little long, so I'm going to read most of this to you. All right, so during the MotoGP race at the season opener Qatar on the 10th of March, 2019, technical protests concerning the use of a device on the Ducati machine were logged with the FIM MotoGP steward by Team Suzuki X-Star against number 43 Jack Miller, by Repsol Honda team number 4 against, the Repsol Honda team against number 4 Andrea Dovizioso, and by the Red Bull KTM factory team and Aprilia Racing team Grassini against number 9 Danilo Petrucci's Ducati. Now, the protesting teams considered that the device was primarily an aerodynamic advantage and therefore not compliant with the MotoGP technical regulations. After a hearing, the 4 protests were rejected. Okay, so then they go on in this release that was issued by the FIM that I just got, talking about, what article it was and all this kind of stuff. But let me read this. So following the hearing in Mees on Friday, the 22nd of March, the MotoGP Court of Appeals handed down its decision today, 26th of March, and the parties, the 4, Ducati and all the other teams, have been duly notified on these grounds. The MotoGP Court of Appeal rules that, number 1, the appeals filed by Team Aprilia, Team Suzuki, Team Honda, and Team KTM are admissible. So that means that the actual, filing was okay. The provisional results are confirmed and are declared as final, and the request to declare the device illegal and ban its use in future races is rejected. So, boom.
So it's going to be on
for nothing.
Yeah, and it's going to be on for the next races. You know what's...
and so now what happens, Jay? Now what happens?
Everybody follows suit.
Everybody follows suit. More money's going to be spent. More research.
Right? I don't think other than when we were in our CRT days 6-7 years ago, that cost right now in MotoGP is something that a lot of people are thinking about anyways. I think that has been definitely left more to the production side of racing because MotoGP is just spending so much money now. I think didn't Yamaha have something like this on their bikes last year at one of the races or anyways, but I think, I don't know, what I just keep on thinking is Ducati has got to be so happy to have Gigi on their side. That guy, that's one smart guy, right? It really truly is. So I think when it all comes said and done, it'll be interesting to see how Twitter's blowing up and all that stuff, I'm sure, with all this today. But I'm just glad they got it done before they get, it's a week out. They got it all done before, I guess not a week. It's a few days out before they get down to Argentina and things. So
agreed.
Greg, the Moto E calendar was revealed on Tuesday. Today, race 1 is going to be at the Sachsenring in July, and then they're going to go to Austria in August. Then they're going to go to Misano on September 2nd. They're going to do 2 races there. Then at the end of the year, at the finale at MotoGP in November, they're going to do another 2 races. So they are still going to get their 5 races in. What do you think?
I don't know. In a weird way, it feels like what they have till July to kind of figure out what the problem was with the fire and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, the solution may be found already. The investigation, I haven't seen anything on it yet. So I'm kind of holding my breath. I want Moto E to succeed, and I think it's amazing. I just don't want anyone to get hurt, any fires to break out. So hopefully they feel confident that by July, by Sachsenring, they'll have the charging stations figured out. There won't be any fire danger and everything will be okay. Barring the safety issues, I just want to see these bikes on track because I'm very interested to see how they're going to race, what the length is like, and what actual racing, plus the sound. I think it's going to be interesting if you have like 15 bikes all racing together and the volume of that sound because, MotoGP has a decibel limit, a minimum decibel limit, by the way, not a maximum. So they love that pounding, feel that you get listening to the MotoGP bikes. So I don't know. I'm cautiously saying good luck.
I think at the beginning of the year when you and I did a little coverage on the Moto E, I was probably like a lot of people. I didn't understand it, and I'm not that into it. I like hearing bikes. I like the smell of fuel. I like all that stuff. And then I kind of saw people that were kind of signing up to ride the bikes, and it intrigued me a little bit more. And then since then, we talked to Bradley Smith about it. So it's definitely piqued my interest. But I think that what we got to not lose sight on is I think that this definitely hurts Moto E in a lot of it gives all the haters fuel, right? To it, no pun intended, but it gives them kind of fuel to go
gives
after
them electricity.
things,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Get it? But the thing is that I think it gives those guys a lot of fuel, but you got to remember behind this, there's a lot of people that have worked really, really hard that have a passion for it, and it is racing. So I still like that side of it. And I hope that when they put this thing together and they've given themselves enough time for July, I hope it runs, and I hope they do a good job with it. And I'm actually like you. I'm looking forward to seeing where it all goes.
All right, so that's our quick shift segment presented by ARAI. Now, how about some time for a listener's question, Jason, on Twitter? Mason, who listens, to the podcast, listen to us talk about like lap traffic during racing, but he wants us to talk about track days and when it's okay to be slow during track days. I know you and I both have the same view on this. So,
well, we do, but for two different reasons. I do because
shut up, dummy.
Of all the time I've ridden on racetracks, but coming from a backmarker's perspective, I know for sure this is a question probably aimed at you a little bit better.
Okay, funny pants. I will say this, Mason, if you're doing track days, it does not matter what speed you are. You really just need to go out there and enjoy yourself, work on something if you're working on it. There are different classes that you have. You have the beginner class, intermediate, advanced. Usually on the beginner class, there's certain rules in place that you can't pass on the inside, those types of things. So my deal is it doesn't matter your speed. Just hold your line, continue to look forward. Okay, spoken like a true backmarker.
This is like a guy that really knows what he's talking about. Okay, for sure, Mason. So listen to this advice.
Whatever, dude. Just get out there and ride. Have fun. Don't worry about it. You don't have rear view mirrors. It is the responsibility of the rider behind you to pass you. So as long as you hold your line, you're predictable. Don't worry about anything. Just go out and have fun. And Jason,
honestly, honestly, have fun with it. Like, I think the hardest thing for people is you do get nervous though when you're out there riding around, and you do worry about. There's so many concerns that you have that you've kind of got to put away, but it's human instinct. I think you got to find, make sure you put yourself in the correct group that you feel comfortable. And at these track days now, there's always somebody, a lot of them have control riders. There's always going to be somebody that's going to be able to go out and help you to start with initially, and will probably make a connection with you and try to see how you're doing throughout the course of the day. So remember, this is supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be a good time. If you keep it that way, I think you'll be fine, Mason. And thanks for the question.
Everybody get out and do a track day. And now time for our race calendar, because Jason and I want you to get out and love the sport of motorcycle racing. Go visit a racetrack. MotoGP, of course, is in Argentina over this weekend. Supercross in Houston, Texas. FIM Moto is in the Netherlands. GNCC Racing in Morgantown, North Carolina. You got to get out and see a GNCC race there.
Are you going to that? You're going to go? How far away is that from you?
It's not too far away, but on Saturday, I'm actually shooting a local archery tournament, so I think I'm staying for that.
Yep.
And, of course, there are local races all over the place, so make sure you go check them out. Next week, we're going to be doing 2 podcasts, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday. The Wednesday one will be our normal one. On Thursday, we're going to have a special MotoAmerica specific podcast with special interviews from the movers and shakers and riders of the paddock. So you want to be on the lookout for that. Please feel free to share this podcast with everyone that you love. And now, Jason, it's time to say goodbye. So why don't you say goodbye to everybody?
See you, everyone. Talk to you next week.
Have fun on the track, Jason. And for the sake of Pete, be careful, would you please?
Thanks, G-Dub.
Bye, everybody.